This episode is brought to you by Portland Distro. If you love underground music and movies, go to portlanddistro.com for licensed shirts, vinyl, CDs, and more. Go to portlanddistro.com. Plug in the discount code MikeHill666 for 15% off at portlanddistro.com. This week we have Jade Willow, adult entertainer, visual artist, podcaster, and curator of all things macabre. A couple weeks ago, I was on her podcast, Shedding the Skin, and I felt like we were in the middle of a really cool conversation, and our time ran out. So I thought it'd be really cool to have her on Everything Went Black. I just want to thank everyone for listening. Please, if you like the show, be sure to leave a review and a rating. Share it with your friends. And I also want to make a brief announcement that sometime at the end of the summer or early fall, I'm going to be launching a Patreon. I'm working on some bonus content. Most of the stuff that I have is a lot of storytelling stuff, expositions about certain subjects, and a couple of surprise interviews that I have in the works that I'm sure you guys will be really stoked about. Let me know. Hit me up on any of the social media channels, or you can hit me up at mike.hill@everythingwentblackmedia.com. Good day, everyone. It's time for an Everything Went Black episode, and I'd like you guys to welcome Jade Willow. I was recently on her podcast, Shedding the Skin, and at the end of that episode, it felt like we were touching on to some other really cool stuff regarding horror. And as you guys all know, since I also co-host Necromaniacs, I'm quite fond of horror. So I figured we would continue the conversation on this episode. And then also talk about Jade's, her site, her fans-only account, her work, and all this other stuff. So good morning, Jade. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's, I felt like we got cut short on your show.
Yeah, well, I think we had like an hour time limit, and I just wanted to be like mindful of your schedule. But we said we would continue it, so here we are.
I appreciate that because some people aren't really mindful of things like that at times.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're busy. You know what I mean? Like you have a job. You're an artist. I'm an artist. We got shit going on. That's why I generally try to ask guests ahead of time, like how much time they're willing to give me or able to give me, and just kind of gauge it off of that.
Awesome. So we were talking about horror, and is that something that I noticed just from your Instagram account that you seem to be into that kind of stuff? And so what's the story? What kind of horror stuff do you like?
Well, I think every metalhead's into horror, dude.
Well, no, actually,
I think that's safe to say.
That's a very good question. I mean, one of the things I ask myself a lot is why am I and why are people into extreme music? Like what's the fascination with dark topics and dark music and dark, artwork and things like that?
I think I had asked you something similar when we were on my show, but I think it's and you had mentioned something like this. It's the visual equivalent of our music. It's something that people that are into extreme stuff could appreciate. Of course, we're going to appreciate blood and horror and guts if we're into like this dark, brutal fucking death metal, black metal type of music. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that just stems from, well, if we want to get deep into it, it just stems from coming probably from a place of like trauma and heartache and struggle, feeling like an outcast, feeling like a misfit. For some reason, that gives us a different perspective into the beauty of the macabre, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good answer because a lot of times I ponder this too. I'm like, well, why don't I like comedies? Why all this doom and gloom and depression and darkness and all this other stuff? Like, why can't I just listen to some bubblegum music and all that sort of business?
Yeah, same here. I mean, I went through my bubblegum music phase when I was a young child and didn't know any better and didn't develop any personal tastes yet.
Yeah.
I used to listen to Spice Girls.
Yeah, I
that
never
was a long time ago, though.
I remember they had a comic book. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Spice Girls had a comic book?
Yeah, of course they had everything. They had
What
everything you
the
could
fuck?
possibly sell to somebody. They had.
Oh my God, no, I didn't know that. That's so funny. I was too young. I'm sure I had like Barbie dolls, so I was a
Sure.
little kid. Once I was innocent.
So what films in the horror genre interest you?
Oh, well, a lot of them, a lot of them. I guess if I had to pick like my favorite, I'd pick the Hellraiser movies. Big fan of Hellraiser. Also a big fan just of Clive Barker in general, Wes Craven, all that good 80s horror shit. And then more recently, I think we had mentioned we were going to talk about stuff like Sador.
Oh
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
fucking excellent film. I like stuff that's very like occult oriented. It's hard to find new movies nowadays that I could be a big fan of, but that film was done fucking excellently. And so, oh, and another one that I'm a big fan of is The Ritual. I don't
Oh
know if you've
yeah.
seen that on Netflix.
I I
Oh my
uh,
God.
I am not only am I a fan of that film, I'm a huge fan of Adam Neville, the guy who wrote the book, The Ritual.
You know, I never got around to reading the book. Is it good?
It's great. It's amazing. It's
I'm sure it's better than the film. That's what they always say.
well, I mean, if you have to look at the things as two different entities, and I enjoyed the film, and it is a little bit unfair to compare a film to a book because in reality, I would rather watch if I read a book and I watch a film about the book. I would rather the film be more influenced by the book than it be like a beat for beat adaptation.
Right, right.
And so they
Yeah,
are
and
two
then
different things, but it's the same story, but they operate differently.
right, there's only so much you can visually translate in the span of an hour or an hour and a half. So that's understandable.
One of my criticisms of The Outsider, the HBO serialization of the Stephen King book, is that it follows the story too much, in my opinion. You know, I read the book when it came out, and there's certain things I'm like, yeah, this is great. I wish I could enjoy it more because I know what's happening. And that's one of the perils, I guess, you
Hmm.
face.
So you felt like it was a bit too predictable?
Well, it was, yeah. It's I like the storyline to depart a little bit. You know what I mean? And for example, like the Watchmen series they did. It's a continuation of what happened in the comic book, and I think it kind of discounts the first version of the movie. And I like that. I like when, especially if you're, like I read the book, I read the Watchmen, I read The Outsider, I read The Ritual, and the treatment of the storyline, I think I would rather it be influenced by as opposed to like a retelling of the story just on film, and sometimes that works for me, but sometimes I'd rather get a little bit more where I don't feel like, okay, I know this guy dies or something, you know what I mean?
Right, right.
Yeah. But there are these new films like you mentioned Seder, and I actually I interviewed interviewed the filmmaker about that on one of
Oh
the
yeah, I
Necro
listened to that.
episodes. Yeah, and I was blown away that the dude, like you watch the movie and you're just like, oh yeah, this guy is like, this is what he's into. The guy wasn't into any of that stuff. He wasn't into weird fiction or Lovecraft or even like he did the score and it sounds like this, dark ambient, sort of music, but he doesn't even listen to that kind of music. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that is really peculiar. I was actually really fascinated by the fact that he did fucking everything. Because that's like the kind of person that I am. I'm
Yeah.
learning like video editing and photography and all these different types of skills. And I'd want to be like my own actor and director. And so it's like to see someone actually do that, even though it took him how many years? It took him a long time.
It did, and I'm also always interested in those stories about people that have these like missions that they go on. It took,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like I think 8 years or something to make that movie.
That shit's crazy, man. But I mean, it pays off in the end. Yeah, at the end he could say, "I did fucking everything. This is my movie." I think he even made the costumes, right?
Yes, I mean it's the
That's
you know
so
he
cool.
built a set and all this stuff. It's pretty crazy.
That's fucking sick, man. Actually, I would like to have a similar costume to that in the future when I'm going to be doing some music stuff with my cello that I bought once I learn how to play it properly. I want to do like this primal kind of like a not unlike Wardruna and Heilung and stuff like that, but more just raw and gritty and probably more black metal influenced. But anyway, it'd be cool to have a fucking like a deer skull situation going on.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. With the cello. And have you heard Vermipire, which is Dwid's, the guy from Integrity? He has a project that he makes the music is made from all homemade equipment that he has.
Ooh, no, I haven't.
Yeah, it's what you mentioned sort of made me think you'd be interested in that. He has like like a detuned piano. He's got some setup that he uses for percussion, and it's influenced by like that Les Légions Noires, that French. Like there's like that, like Vlad Tepes, like all these super raw, obscure like
Mm,
French bands, and
yeah, yeah.
it's kind of in that vein, and but it's all done with like his own instruments that he made or had made or welded together and stuff. So you might be interested in that.
That sounds pretty cool. What was it called again?
It's called Vermipire.
Vermipire. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure if you go to dwidhellion.com, there's probably links to it. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I started. You and I met on Instagram, which is like a weird. That's so telling of our society in some ways, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean that's how you meet people nowadays is through social media. You don't actually meet them in person, God forbid.
Well, the funny thing is, like, I was driving back from the gym the other night, and I was listening to Into the Necrosphere. Like, have you checked out that podcast?
Yeah, yeah, we talked about that a little
Yeah,
bit. That's how I found Jackie through you.
yeah, right. I wanted to establish that here, that we all know Jackie. Okay,
Oh yeah.
so I'm like, man, Jackie's cool. He's
Yeah,
been
he's a
on.
cool guy.
Yeah, he's been on this show. I've been on his Into the Necrosphere podcast a bunch of times. We always going back and forth on Facebook Messenger about like bands and stuff like that. And I was like, man, what a cool guy, man. But I've never fucking met the dude in person. You
Well, he's
know?
all the way in London.
Yeah, he's over in the
Somewhere?
UK. But I mean,
Yeah,
I
somewhere in the
go
UK.
I go to Europe all not as much as obviously I'm in Europe every year for the most part. You know what I mean? Or I used to,
Hmm.
or I will be again at some point. Man, this whole pandemic thing's got me fucked up.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
I
dude.
Yeah, because touring and going overseas, that was how I would catch up with everybody. Like I would have
Hmm.
met him by now at this point,
Right,
you
right.
know. And and then you and I, we correspond, via social media channels, and I was tripping out on that because I'm just like, yeah, there's all these people that are, in my life in some way, but I have never physically put my eyes on them. I've never occupied the same temporal space that they have. And so yeah, I don't know. That stuff trips me out sometimes. Like, what do you have any thoughts on that? Because we are moving into this weird matrix-like world.
Yeah, we really are. I mean, I guess I'm used to it, partially because I'm really an introvert and which is funny because of all the things that I do. But it's very rare that I actually go out and meet anyone of interest. It's hard for me to find people that I can actually connect with on a local level. Right now I'm in fucking Ohio and it's like there's I think there's a little bit of a death metal scene, but I haven't met like any black metal people, which is mainly what I'm into. So I have a lot of online friends. I wish I could say they were nearby and we were hanging out, but I'm generally just a solo person and everybody that I know is scattered across the globe somewhere, unfortunately. So I'm used to not meeting the people that I would consider to be friends, but I'd like to be able to change that hopefully in the near future when everything goes back to some semblance of normalcy. And I actually kind of made it a goal to try and be more social, especially after the pandemic, because we were so isolated and it definitely took a toll on my mental health as well as everyone else's, you know? I mean, and you're not that far. You're in New Jersey. Maybe we can meet sometime and actually like do a show face to face or just hang out or something. That'd be cool.
Well, yeah, that's. I mean, I that's the thing. Like for me, without the pandemic, I'm out there all the time traveling. Like I would. 1 year I was in San Francisco 5 times. You know what I mean? Like in a 12-month span. I get out there into the world normally. Tour plans got canceled in 2020, which means that a huge chunk of my social activity got just eliminated because that's how I would see people on the road. I'd go to like California, I'd run into my friends in LA, I'd see my friends in San Francisco, got friends in San Diego, Chicago, everywhere. I got friends all over all over the world, really. And I've met most of these people in person, and then social media has allowed me to maintain my friendships with them, or I should say the digital world has allowed me to maintain friendships between mobile technology and all that sort of jazz. And I guess I really did miss the physical contact. And I mean, we talked about this on your show, like the mental impact and emotional impact of that too. So it's a bit of an adjustment the other way around for me. It's like it becomes like real abstract. Like when you have a social connection with somebody virtually, when there's like a through digital technology, you become friends with somebody without actually meeting them in person. And that's like I'm processing all of this stuff, and the last like 15 months or so, coupled with all these things that have happened, have really sort of forced me into this new realm where that has to become somewhat normal. And so I guess what you're saying is that you're pretty comfortable with all that stuff, right?
Yeah, well, I'm also not a touring musician, so that wasn't the norm for me.
Right, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I imagine at this point, traveling through Ohio constantly, like on the road. I mean, you and I probably would have met at some point, at a show or whatever. We would have set up some kind of, hey, I'm in, Cleveland or whatever, and that's kind of like the normal world for me, I guess, And it's been rough,
I know. Soon, hopefully soon.
Yeah. So
it's been way too fucking long.
Your podcast, that I was recently a guest on that, and what started that with you? How did you get into doing that?
Well, for those of you that don't know, I'm the host for Shedding Skin podcast, and it's about mental health mainly, but we talk about other things too that musicians would be passionate about or just feel comfortable sharing and discussing. But what brought it about was the series of all the fucking suicides that happened a few years ago within the music industry. The very first one was with Jill Janis, which I think was about 4 years ago, from Huntress. And even though I was never a fan of Huntress's music, it made me so sad. It made me so sad because she seemed like such a genuinely kind-hearted person, and she was also a witch, and she was a metal vocalist, so she was a sister. And it just really broke my heart to see all these musicians talking about how, oh, there needs to be more mental health awareness. Sorry, my dog. So I just wanted to create a platform where I could do that. I really felt like we needed it. And then I think who was it? Chester Bennington, and then Chris Cornell. It's just like these people were dropping like flies. I know they're not exactly metal, but they still created a huge impact for a lot of people. And I just feel like it's just not taken seriously. It's just not taken seriously. I don't know if we had mentioned it on our episode, but when you have a physical sickness, some type of ailment, say you have cancer or a broken leg, people take that seriously. You know, they give you all the sympathy, they give you all the support, but there's this huge stigma against mental health and opening up about it. You know, if you tell somebody that you have depression, if you tell somebody that you're suicidal, it's something that you're supposed to be ashamed of. It's something that you're supposed to keep to yourself and keep it as a secret, which in the end fucking makes you want to die even more. You know what I mean? Because you need to be able to talk about it. You need to be able to be open about it. And I've struggled with depression all of my fucking life. So it's just something that I feel really passionate about. So I've been reaching out to musicians that are open about their struggles with it in the hopes to raise awareness and hopefully help people out that feel like they're alone, because they're not.
Yeah, definitely. There's in the last, like I would say the last decade or so, there's I think that mental health has become taken more of a forefront in overall health. You know, or at least the trends might have started about 10 years ago, I think. You know, back in the days when I was a kid, going into therapy, no one put any weight on that, and just society back then too was like, men are supposed to be this way, women are supposed to be that way. There was like the strong silent type, like motif for masculinity and all that sort of stuff. You're not supposed to talk about your feelings and all that. And, I mean, luckily that's all changed. And I think that men particularly have become more comfortable talking about their feelings, and how they their emotional states. And I think that some people go off into this dark wilderness if they spend too much time alone and they're not able to talk about their feelings. And I mean, it's good to have just a platform too. I'm pretty upfront about going to therapy and talk therapy and stuff like that. And I think that if people have these thoughts or these feelings or even just want to unload some stuff, that going into a therapy situation is probably the first step towards securing your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I was surprised when you had mentioned that on the show, because I wasn't aware that you go to therapy, which is something that everybody needs to do, honestly. We all have some baggage that we need to unload and work on, and I'm constantly working on self-improvement and, different ways on how to be a better person. So I definitely think that that's something that could be immensely beneficial to a lot of people. We just got to break the stigma that surrounds that, And like you're saying, it's gotten a lot better, but it's definitely still there, especially for men. So thank you again for being open about that.
Ironically, I think that one of the biggest things that sort of media, art things that have opened up people to therapy has been the Sopranos show on HBO, actually. Where you have I know it's old or whatever, but I think a lot of people started seeing therapy differently when they put it in the context of a show like that, and some people didn't even know what it was all about. That show appealed to a very broad swath of people. And, I know even within my family, my family used to watch that show and they were just like, oh, that's what you do in therapy. You sit down and just talk like that. They thought that if you went into therapy, that there was something wrong with you, that you were like crazy or, you're mentally weak or something, And, ironically, a show like that, I think really, in a very populist sort of way, paved the way for people being more open to doing that kind of stuff.
I actually never got around to watching that. It just never was something that I was interested in. So wasn't it about gangsters or something?
It was, but a large component of that was the crime family boss, Tony Soprano, played by the late James Gandolfini, was in therapy. So every episode there'd be a section where he would be in with his therapist. And so it was uncovering emotional aspects of his life that, sort of giving him like a magnifying glass to look at who he is as a person. And that was like a huge part of the show. And
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, I love crime shit like that, like gangster stuff and, movies about the mafia and all that. But, I didn't, and here you go. I avoided watching that show. I not avoided it, but I didn't think I'd be interested in it because I thought it was like a comedy. Oh, he's in therapy. You know what I mean? It's like, who the hell wants to watch, like, I want to watch a guy, like, murder people and, do crime. You know what I mean?
Right.
But little by little, people were like, oh, you should watch this, man. It's cool. I checked it out, and it contextualized the type of person that he is, the worldview that he has, and by going into talk therapy, reevaluating who he was as a person. I mean, ultimately, you see the character change. It doesn't change who he is, but it makes him aware of some of the the periods of his life. And they cover a lot of things. He's suicidal at some point. They put him on like antidepressants. It kind of runs. It's like a really smart show, is what I'm trying to say. I guess it's like a very creatively, very deep show, in my opinion. And I mean, whatever. It came out in the late '90s, but it's still really relevant, especially now we're talking about mental health and therapy and all that. I think that really opened a lot of, like, your average person's eyes to what actually goes on in a therapy session.
Yeah. Well, that's fucking awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that out sometime.
I definitely recommend it. Definitely.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So some of the other things, you have a fans only site, or is it fans only, OnlyFans, like that kind of stuff?
It's called OnlyFans.
Okay. Yeah. I got to be honest. Like, I'm not, I mean, I look at porn just like everyone else, but I'm not, I also, I don't know. It's just not part of my the rounds I make in the world. You know what I mean? I'm like adjacent to all that stuff.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah. So you're really the first adult, sort of artist, I guess, that I've had on the show. So tell us about like all that stuff. How'd you get into that? Some of the trial. I know that you and I have talked about some of the difficulties you've had, and so yeah, let's get into that.
Well, it's a subscription-based service, kind of like a Patreon, and you don't have to use it for porn. You could use it for anything. It just ended up being a platform for porn because it was legal, and I think a lot of people were already doing it anyway. And then I think most chicks use it maybe just to sell nudes. So I started off doing that just to make some side cash, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And I've had a really good experience with it. Most of the people that are subscribed to me are people that I would consider to be like online friends. It's basically a good way to support a small business. I really don't understand why it gets so much hate. It really does. And it's bullshit because I mean, you'll go ahead and jerk off to Pornhub for free, but you won't pay $10 to help your homegirl out, you know what I mean? And I just don't understand the stigma against female sex workers specifically. Because if you're a male porn star, then it's like, oh, fuck yeah, you're getting all this pussy, fucking hell you. But if you're a chick who's enjoying herself, it's like, oh, there's all this slut shame that you get. And I just think it's so incredibly hypocritical, and I just don't understand it because it's a hustle. It really is a hustle. People are like, oh, it's so easy. You just have to post pictures of your ass and you make all this money. No, you have to. It's basically like doing YouTube stuff, but sexy. You know what I mean? Like there's video editing. There's a million different pictures that you have to take. You have to take time for makeup, hair, set up your little scene or whatever. And like what, just because I'm enjoying myself while I'm working, it's supposed to be looked down upon? You know what I mean? It's bullshit.
Well, I think having free porn is that's only that's like a more recent in the big picture of media occurrence, because back in the old days, when everyone had to rent porno DVDs,
right,
people did pay. You had to go into that curtained off area in the video store make sure that no one's, no one can see you. There's no one there. And then it's like, okay,
I know, right? You look around your shoulder.
Yeah, you got to, all right, no one's paying attention. Let me slip into the back room here with the curtains.
Yeah.
And, you'd have a limited selection of stuff, and then you'd have to like go up and rent it and feel ashamed of yourself, hopefully. And so yeah, it cost you money. And I don't know. I think actually the rentals on porno DVDs and VHSs were more money than the other ones. So.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So that used to be the way things were done, and then I don't know, like circa 2002 or something is when you were able to actually start streaming stuff for free, like on the internet, or the late 90s maybe. And that's only been like a couple of decades. So people have grown accustomed to the free nature of this stuff. So
right, like music.
Yeah, and I guess that's the parallel I'm trying to connect these two things, because they're both, I mean, I don't judge anyone for what they do. It's I got a pretty Luciferian like point of view on life, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's you're in a band, you play your music, you're making records, okay? Now, you can listen to everything for free. You can exploit a band's entire back catalog for free, and no one understands that. Okay, well, to make these recordings, you have to spend, like a whole industry is going down because people are listening to stuff for free, because the people that record music are having to take less money. You're breaking up these projects. Oh, I'm going to do some of this in our practice space. I'm going to bring some of this to the studio, and you mix it. So I understand where you're coming from. If this is like the kind of industry, if the path that you've chosen is this, then if you're producing something quality, then people should be open to they shouldn't be hung up on paying for it. You know what I mean? In some form.
Right.
Now the hatred and criticism, is it because it's not free that you're asking for money, or is it the actual material that people are critical of?
I think a lot of it has to do with the free aspect. I think a lot of men are just really entitled to fucking free porn, and they're like, oh, I'm not gonna fucking pay for porn when I could just watch it for free. Like, that's not the point. The point is to have exclusive content from somebody that you've always wanted to see that content from, or somebody that you've had a crush on for a long time and want to have more engagement with. You know what I mean? It's more personal. You get to message people, ask them if you want to. You don't have to, but that's a service that you can offer. Sometimes I'll just randomly message people with like a picture or something, ask them how their day's going. And I used to do like dirty talk stuff, but I just didn't feel like doing it anymore. So that's not a service I offer anymore. You literally can do whatever you want to do. Like, you are your own boss. You don't have to do anything that you're not comfortable doing, which is what I love about it, which is more than I can say about the porn industry, because Lord knows all these poor little 18-year-old girls that don't fucking know any better are totally being taken advantage of. So you could fucking jerk off for free. Why not support an adult who knows what they're doing and is trying to do a side hustle in the comfort of her own home? You know what I mean? And having a good time doing it. Like, I just don't understand what the problem is.
Well, you touched on a very interesting subject, because, my understanding of the porn industry, and I remember back when I was in college, I wrote a paper about Linda Lovelace. So I did quite a bit of research on the old porn industry. And yeah, drugs, exploitation, abuse. It's a male-dominated world for the most part. Yeah, I mean, exclusively, until almost, I would say, like the Burning Angel stuff might have been some of the first, female-run porn.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, it's like if you people are big on like how you're spending your money and like financially backing something that's more in line with your ideologies. Like, I guess that's all part of it too, where it's like, well, if you're, gonna, I mean, I don't know what some of the main old school like companies were, but like, if you're gonna like back one of these companies, most likely you're backing some kind of abuse or exploitation in some way,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah,
And if you're going independent, then you're pretty much, it's a direct, support system where you're dealing directly with the creator.
exactly. Yeah, and actually a lot of porn stars have been moving over to OnlyFans for that specific reason.
I first became aware of that when I noticed that, and this is another totally other conversation, that there's a few MMA fighters, like women MMA fighters, that I've read about having their own sites, like pay sites. And, I mean, that speaks to a whole other exploitation about how fighters don't make enough money to really actually live, and how the UFC is like exploiting everyone, and that's a whole other, you know. I've realized that most people that listen to this don't really follow MMA, so I'm not going to go too deeply into it. But that's when I was like, oh wow, like that's unfortunate. But then my second thought was like, well, if that's what someone wants to do, that's what they're enjoying. It's like, that's all good. So that, and then
Yeah, yeah.
then I started seeing that it was actually this industry that's going on.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, not something that you should do if you don't want to do it. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't encourage very young girls to do it because you do have to think about long-term consequences. Like if you're planning on getting some type of, I don't know, paralegal job, they probably won't hire you because they're going to discriminate against you having an OnlyFans, which sucks, but it's a reality, you know? But personally for me, there's nothing. I want to live the life that I want to live, and I'm going to do what I want to do. And there's not going to be any career walls blocking me from doing what I want to do. So I'd rather be able to work from home. I just want to be an entrepreneur and be self-employed. So I'd rather just work from home, be able to dress sexy, do stuff that's fun, enjoy myself, put on some music, throw on a sexy outfit, and I don't feel ashamed about it. I'm pretty happy with the way that it's turned out so far.
As time goes by, and there seems to be this very deliberate move towards tolerance in our society, which has been a long time coming, in my opinion.
Hmm.
That concept I support 100%. I think that anyone should be able to express themselves to the fullest extent, however they want. Dress, identify themselves with whatever gender. That's great. I think that's part of being human, and people should be able to express themselves. I don't get behind the cancel culture aspect of that. That's like like I always say that people tend to ruin the best things in some ways, and I think the cancel culture stuff has gotten kind of out of hand. But the point I'm trying to bring up is, as time goes by and this environment of tolerance hopefully takes hold with people, do you think that's going to be like having a site, a fans only site, is do you think something like that, say 10 years from now, would really play into having someone discriminate against you? Like, do you see a move towards that being more socially acceptable? Be
Um,
honest about this, because like I'm really interested to see what your perspective is on it.
well, I mean, I would like it to be personally. You would think that would be the direction that we're moving in, but I mean, we've experienced all this spikes in getting zucked on Facebook, as they call it. Um, a lot of sex workers are being attacked on social media for trying to promote their website. Like Instagram has threatened to delete me so many fucking times. They probably will at some point. And Facebook had banned me for several months at a time because I posted sexy pictures, and that only became a problem once OnlyFans started taking off and people realized you were able to monetize it, I guess, which I still don't understand the hate towards, but okay. I guess as long as the sex industry is being run by males, it's totally fine. But the time that women try to take autonomy for themselves and be their own boss is not okay. Like I just don't get that. Um, And then I know they're trying to implement some rules now on OnlyFans where they're going to try to kick off not necessarily nudes, but I think porn content, and they're going to try to do something with celebrities like excuse me for a moment, let me gather my thoughts here. They're going to focus more on ad revenue through celebrity based profiles as opposed to gaining the revenue that they're gaining now from sex workers, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous because we built that fucking website and made them all their money, and now they're going to fucking try to kick us off because I think Mike Tyson or somebody, or was it Mayweather? Floyd Mayweather has an account, and they realized they can make all sorts of money through ads. So they're trying to push sex workers out, which I think is just going to backfire because that's the whole reason people signed up to that fucking website in the first place. Like, nobody gives a shit about these guys doing stuff at home unless they're jerking off, you know?
I mean, maybe that's it. Who knows? I mean, Floyd, jerking off. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's an audience for that,
So, I mean, I hope in the future people will be more tolerant. Like, that should be the direction that we're moving in, but it seems to be regressing for some reason. And I'm hoping once all these like old people die out, maybe a new way of living can happen.
It's funny that you say that, like, the boomer generation dropping dead might help our society, which I believe, I'm over that mindset too in some ways. But I gotta say, man, I see some super extreme ignorance amongst like younger people that probably should know better and become a little bit more hip to what actually is going on in society.
Oh yeah.
It's like I see some real narrow minds, especially now. I mean, I'm not trying to, I love New Jersey. I didn't grow up out here. I grew up in New York, but I like it out here. It's quiet, it's like people, leave me alone for the most part. I can do what I want to do. Now that I'm able to go out and do things, I can go into the city pretty easily. But, I see a lot of people that, younger people that just don't get it, man. And I'm like, it's because maybe they grow up in these like small towns and that's all they know is this conservative mindset. But I hope, I hope that a lot of this is just dinosaur shit at some point. It's going to just be like you're just so out of step with everything else that you just need to update your software and figure out what the new thing is,
Yeah, I hope so too. But you're right. There's plenty. There's going to be idiots in every generation. We can't expect perfection.
I definitely, talking to you about all this stuff definitely made me see the parallels between the music industry too. I mean, we've had conversations about this off the air and whatever, and I started thinking more about like the fans only sites. I mean, I keep getting it backwards, don't I? Is it fans only or OnlyFans?
It's OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
It's okay. It's kind of
cute. The OnlyFans sites are almost like Bandcamp, really, in some ways.
Yes.
It's basically the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. See, I get things right every now and then.
Let me just. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's Bandcamp for
for sex workers.
For sex workers. And,
yeah.
Bandcamp. You make a record. Recording 7 inches, whatever. You put it out, sell T-shirts. You can have, one-to-one contact with people who like your music and all that sort of stuff. And you control the whole thing. And Bandcamp takes like they wet their beak in whatever you got going on, and it's all good. And I feel like that's basically the system that you're describing.
Yes, that is. I can't believe I didn't think about that. You were so right. I'm going to make a Facebook post about that.
See, there you go.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, basically you're supporting an independent artist. I mean, you don't have to call us artists, but I try to be artistic with everything that I do. I mean, I am an artist anyway, so I got that flair,
Well, I mean, that's it's all of its creativity, really. I think as I've gotten older, I start seeing almost creativity in most things. If you take a void of nothingness and you put something in that space, then you're actually creating. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of it was like, I'm not really a big comedy fan per se, but I started getting back into comedy. I mean, I loved like Lenny Bruce and all that early stuff because it was like edgy and had this like, listening to the old stuff. I knew what he went through as a comedian, like being arrested, and I read his books, and I looked at it more as like this. Oh well, that's like spoken word, But
Mm-hmm.
I guess listening to Joe Rogan and Bill Hicks and people like that, and I'm not putting Rogan in the same realm as Bill Hicks, but he's a successful guy. I started seeing the creativity even in comedy because I was like, oh, it's just a guy telling jokes up there. What is that? So anytime that you're filling a void, you're creating, and I think that even porn is creative and artistic, and I guess the degrees of how successful you are. I mean, obviously you can film porn with an iPhone, so I've seen stuff like that for free online, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well that's not very creative, and then there's stuff that actually has some thought and intention put into it, and that is way more creative and higher quality, and I'm sorry I'm rambling about this, but like
No, don't be sorry.
there was like that big criticism between the 70s and the 80s in porn, where the 70s porn filmmakers were like, oh, we shoot on 35 millimeter, we got stories, there's actually acting, like if you watch
Yeah.
like a Jamie Gillis movie from the 70s, there's characters, there's like
Yeah.
storyline and narrative, and then there's like hardcore sex scenes. And then in the 80s, it was all about shooting on video, and the storylines got thinner, obviously. And
Yeah.
so there's always been that criticism of quality, I guess, within porn. So it's like now I look at everything as like any kind of situation where you're filling a void with something, you're creating, and that's creativity and that's art. So there you go. I don't know. That's my analysis of the whole thing.
Well, that's a very in-depth and appreciated analysis, Michael. Thank you.
So yeah,
Um,
definitely, man. I appreciate your appreciation on that aspect.
it's funny that you mentioned that. It makes me think of this porno that I bought for like $80 back in the day when you actually had to buy porn. It was called Fashionistas, and it was like this latex fetish type of film, and it was done so fucking well. Like it legit had a whole storyline. It was about a fashion company that created latex wear, and they had characters, and the way that they shot the scenes were just so cinematic, and the outfits were phenomenal. The porn stars were fucking great. The film score, oh my god, it had such a killer fucking soundtrack. Like that entire fucking movie was just art. It was so fucking high art. And I was like, dude, that's the kind of shit that I'm trying to make. I mean, I do solo stuff, but I have like my DSLR camera and my lights and little setup studio that I do just for photography. So I was like, all right, well, I might as well utilize that for my adult stuff too. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm moving towards to be like more professional and cinematic. And I've also, like I mentioned, been studying video editing. So I like to make it more creative in that way as well. Like it really is a hustle.
Yeah, I mean that's all that shit's all expensive, man. Those are expenses that people
Yeah.
just don't understand. They think this shit magically appears, and it's oh yeah, man. Like I'm just gonna like watch this stuff for free or listen to this stuff for free, but they don't understand that there's a whole network of things that go on underneath this that need to be dealt with, and no one cares that, oh well, I'm gonna listen to this for free. Well, I still need to buy like equipment. I still need to like pay for this. I still put X amount of hours into editing this thing.
Yep. Yep. That's what takes the longest is the fucking editing.
Yeah, and people don't value time, man. That's like, I mean, I've done gig work within the audio field, throughout my life, and
Hmm.
no one cares that like mixing a song will take 10 hours or something like that between all the editing and sound
Yeah.
replacement and triggers and all this other stuff. And that's like soft time. Those are soft expenses that, well, it's up to you to do that, you know, and they just try to
Right.
like, you know, squeeze as much value out of the $100 they give you to do something, you know, and it's like,
Right.
well, you
Right.
know, if you factor in all the hours that I put into this thing, I'm making like 75 cents an hour on it, you know, so even though you might have paid like $2,000 for something, it breaks down to being like 50 cents an hour for me, you know.
Yeah. That's fucking brutal, dude.
It is, you know, and I just wish people would be a little bit more mindful of that. And like the worst part about it, I mean, this is more like, you know, personal shit here, but it's like, you know, someone's like, oh yeah, let's you know, let's work on this thing, and then they're like, they expect it to be done for free, you know, and
Yeah.
that flies to a certain extent with certain people, a certain number of times, and
Hmm.
then it becomes like taking advantage of somebody, you know what I mean, and
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, so nowadays, yeah, there's a little bit more funds and a little bit more budget to go around with the things I'm doing, and like whenever I need to employ someone from the outside, I always make sure that I find out like what kind of rate they want. You know, hey man, you know, this is what we need done. How much money do you want? What would you feel comfortable with? So that there isn't this like, it just smooths everything out. You know what I'm trying to say? Like whenever there's
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
exchange, that means I appreciate what you've done. I appreciate your work and your skill. And I want to make sure that you feel comfortable. I mean, hey, you can give me a break. You can give me a discount if you want. But I want to make sure that I'm not taking advantage of you. And I guess like that's like, I guess that all plays into this whole thing of taking advantage of people and the time that they put in this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you actually show people that you fucking value their skill and their time because that needs to be appreciated. It really does. People do get taken advantage of, especially in the music industry, which fucking sucks because I mean, how many of us have had our lives enhanced because of music, but we're not willing to support it by buying a record? All these years that it took you to perfect your craft, to mix and master, to record, thousands of dollars you got to spend. And it's like, you guys got to just focus on now you can only make your money through touring, and it's fucking bullshit. And I wonder if there's a way we could change that to the way it used to be, before the digital age fucking ruined it.
Well, you know, one of the things you mentioned about the site and the involvement of celebrities and using like ad revenue now as a way to monetize everything. That's like almost exactly what happens with these streaming services for music. It's yeah, back in, there's we're renegades, man. We're cutting out the major labels, we're just offering things to everyone, for free. It's like this for the people, but the reality of what happened is like, yeah, no one's buying records, really. I mean, they are, but not like they used to in the 80s and the
Yeah.
90s and the 70s. So, yeah, man, we're going to start these like other services, right? But all these other services are basically the same people that were involved in exploiting musicians and, people with the major label industry. It's basically the same masters that you're serving, and
Yeah.
now whatever's left financially through streaming is being gobbled up mostly by these overlords that we have, that were the same overlords we had who were, offering these, slave wages with respect to royalties. And it's the same thing, man. It's just the same thing, except that you're getting exploited even harder, And it's like kind of like what you were talking about with the involvement of these celebrities, where the people that built this whole network, this whole platform, are now being edged out because of, oh yeah, man, we, thanks for your work and putting it on the line for us, but we're going to become just like the other people. Now we're going to be just like Facebook, who are trying to marginalize what you guys were doing. And it just sucks, man. And I don't know how to solve any of these things. I wish I had some kind of solution, but it just seems like more and more there's always like a new thing, and then that thing gets ruined by greed and exploitation. You know.
Would you suggest that fans support people with Bandcamp pages in the meantime to show their appreciation?
I feel like that really is the best way to support a band. Really, is that buy their. But this is the other thing too. Like for the band I play in, none of our material is was produced independently. Like the either Metal Blade or Season of Mist or Relapse have released our records. So when you buy something on Bandcamp, we're not really seeing that money per se. It's going against our whatever our royalty rates are with whatever respective label put out that record. So for bands that are already involved with labels, it's not like a one-to-one support system. You're still being filtered through the label.
Right.
For more independent bands, though, like if you want to, and this is kind of how I kind of hope things go in the future. If you're a creative guy, a band, creative person, woman, non-binary, whatever. It's like if you have this entity that you're trying to put out there, I feel like Bandcamp might be the best way to go. Because really in the beginning, you make a demo, no one really gives a fuck about your, okay, we're just starting out. But if you can really work it with a platform like Bandcamp where you get to keep all the money, maybe that's the key to success, maybe that's it. You just like make your own music, go out and tour, sell merchandise, and it's all direct, and that might be the way to go really in the future. And you might not need a label. Maybe you could hire eventually. Your sales are so that you can hire a PR person to help you get reviews and coverage in the different sites and magazines and all that sort of stuff. I don't know.
Isn't that becoming more common now?
Yeah, that's why I said it. It's like I think I've seen bands become. There was damn, I forgot this guy's name, but there's some dude that Jay Bennett told me about that was his whole thing is on Bandcamp, and he's actually really successful, and I think that's pretty awesome. The idea of a label is cool, but it's like we're still not to that point really where everyone can succeed on their own, because there's definitely benefits to being involved with a record label where it's like, okay, well, we have PR, we got like a connection to playing the big festivals and and getting on tours, and that's still like that mentality is still in place where it's like, okay, well, if you want to go on tour with these like big bands that play these big festivals, you have to know someone. You got to be in with some overarching organization that can help you achieve that. And if you're a Bandcamp band, you don't. You're not at that point yet. Someday, I hope eventually someone breaks through and it's like, check it out. I did this all on my own, man, and I'm playing Vakken or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
But that's the only downside right now. But maybe down the line that changes. I hope it does.
Yeah, I mean, in the future, who knows? People are becoming so innovative now. Somebody's bound to make it work. I hope.
So you were saying like photography and art and all that stuff, and I know that you post a lot of that stuff. I've seen some of your artwork online, and so like what's like your background with that? Like what got you involved in artwork and photography?
Well, I've always been an artist. I've been drawing since I was a little kid, so it's something that comes naturally to me. But I've always been interested in photography and modeling as well. Like I had my first camera. I think I got it as a graduation gift, and I would I don't know, I'd be bored at home and I'd start taking pictures of myself. And so it's just something that I picked up again recently, and I got another camera with a better lens. And I've been learning just how to use it properly, and, how to model, quote unquote, properly, and how to do Photoshop. I've been learning a lot of Photoshop lately, which has been a lot of fun. It's just a really fun creative outlet for me, and it's a lot easier for me anyway to be able to teach myself how to be a photographer and take my own pictures as opposed to like running around trying to find a photographer, which I'd still like to do at some point. I have modeled here and there with some different people, and that's always been fun. But I just enjoy the creative process more when I do it myself. And I don't know, maybe that's just not the way most people do it because they're not comfortable with all the technology, but it's just a skill set that I've been developing and that I've personally enjoy. So at some point, I hope to be published or to work with a big name brand like Killstar or something. That would be the goal, and I'd like to be able to just be financially independent is my main goal. So I was also thinking of doing like tutorials on my YouTube channel
Yeah. Okay.
for like tips and tricks on Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Premiere, which is the way that I've been learning is by basically looking up a bunch of little YouTube hacks. So it's like, well, might as well monetize that, and it could be like a source of passive income. So that's my goal. That's my goal is to just be financially independent, basically.
So that's all self-taught though. Like, did you didn't actually go to school or anything like that, right? That's all DIY basically.
Yeah, fucking YouTube, man. YouTube is incredible. Like it is the age of information. Absolutely.
Man, and that's another thing that blows my mind too. Is like when I first started using like Pro Tools and all this other stuff, there was really no way to learn it unless someone taught you that you knew someone, like you were working with another engineer, and they were like, "All right, this is how you do Pro Tools," or you took a class somewhere, which, and you might not even really learn it the way you need to learn it if you take a class, But
Yeah.
nowadays, you just go on YouTube and there's every technical detail you need is outlined there.
Yes. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah,
I mean that and
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Man, I really need to learn how to do some video editing. I don't like I'm like one side. That's it, just audio. Like I've been so focused on making music and that I'd never think of the picture part of things. And these days, that really is the full experience, is having audio and video together.
Yeah, I would say so, especially for podcasting. Like I think people really enjoy the visual aspect of it. I think people enjoy being able to see their artists and, their facial expressions and their charisma as opposed to just listening to it. Not to knock audio by any means at all,
Sure.
but it's definitely something that's more popular nowadays. So I would suggest it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, obviously you've done a lot of editing anyway, so I don't think it'd be much of a challenge for you.
Yeah, I mean, I have, I got Pro Tools. That's like the main, and all the different, like Logic, and I have a pretty good familiarity with all the compositional stuff with music. But so as far as like video editing, you think Premiere is the way to go?
It's a pretty good program. I haven't had, well, sometimes it freezes up. I know there's other programs that have been suggested. I forget what they're called though. But for me, I have like a year subscription, so I'm going to stick with it until my subscription runs out. But I mean, at first it was a little bit daunting, but like I said, I just looked up a bunch of tutorials and I've been getting the hang of it. I'd like to be able to get to the point where I create more cinematic, maybe short film
Oh,
type
wow. Okay.
stuff, which I think I had mentioned to you before.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really cool. You had said, well, if you need somebody to like play a bad guy, I've always wanted to do that. So I was like, yeah, that would be cool. I don't know. I thought in the future also I could get into maybe doing like music videos, because why not? It would be something that would utilize all of my skill sets. I'd be able to meet artists that I love, and it would be another creative outlet and of course a source of income also.
I think 100% you should try to do that, because that's actually a huge component of what, these days is used to market music. You know what I mean? It's, I mean, we do videos. Sometimes they're, full production, but then a lot of them are those like visualizer animated videos, which I think are really cool too. And,
Yeah, I've seen some of those too.
Yeah, that's the way to go, man. Because nowadays, especially, I mean, YouTube obviously is a huge way to market stuff. But with things like Gimme TV are starting up, where it's almost like video channels now. So it's starting to. I think it's like a really viable thing these days.
What is Gimme TV? I haven't checked that out
okay,
yet.
see now. I used to host a podcast for Gimme Radio, or
Mm-hmm.
they rebranded as Gimme Metal, called Metal Matters, and that I gave that up a few months ago. Now I'm just
Yeah, I listened to that. Mm-hmm.
all on my own, doing my own shows again. So they started this new thing called Gimme TV, which if you are subscribing to, if you have the app and you're a subscriber, it's another thing on the app, and you could just watch like you used to watch on MTV, just like music videos, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever it's like live. So whatever they play is what you're watching. So you can you can't select things. It just runs a program, and it's like, okay, I want to watch Gimme TV. Check out some new metal videos, and they'll be like, whatever, like an Amon Amarth video, or Tombs or something like that will pop up on there.
Oh, so it's like their own TV channel.
Exactly. It's like a TV channel. Yeah, I guess that's,
cool.
I probably should have said that first off, but yeah,
it's
a
all
TV
good.
channel. And every now and then they'll do these shows on there where it's like a live stream will air. Like we aired a live stream on there after we did the pay-per-view part of it. And, and then you promote it. Oh yeah, live on Gimme TV, we're doing, like you could check out whatever, Clandestine Ritual at 2:00 on Friday. And then you watch it in real time as it's happening, and you can, nowadays everything's about social and, messaging. So, fans can, hey, this is cool, or this fucking band sucks, I don't like them anymore, or whatever, that kind of thing. So
they can have engagement with you guys while you're playing.
Yeah, actually, that's the other thing too. It's like
that's cool.
Like when we did our live stream, we jumped on and talked to people about it. Like whatever. It's too short. Like we wanted more material or something like that. I remember we did this thing, man, and some guy was like, "That's it," and I was like, "Well, dude, we only had like $2,000 to work with on this," and this guy was expecting like an hour-long production. With like multiple camera angles and stuff. And I'm like, well, you can get 2 out of the 3. You can get quick, fast, and good. You can't get all 3. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was like, okay, great. We wanted to make it good, and, but that costs money. You know what I mean? So you can't get a long piece and still have the quality. And once again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, like, there's parameters on these things, you know what I mean? And there's like also value and cost and, people's time and all that. And the person who edited it, was edited professionally. And it was just like, well, we had a budget. We had to work within the budget. So, would you rather just have
fucking
us film?
Ungrateful consumer.
Yeah, it's like we could have just shot like 3 hours of us in the practice space on like an iPhone, and would that have made you happy? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
With the long breaks between songs, like talking about like whatever, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's what the guy wanted. Who knows?
Well, fuck that guy. Yeah, unless you're an artist, you do not understand and appreciate the artist hustle as you should. I mean, people are just so fucking spoiled. That's probably just some fucking fat, lazy guy sitting on his couch eating potato chips. You know what I mean? Like, who fucking has nothing going on in his life. Like, so ungrateful.
Yeah,
but that's fucking cool, man. That's cool.
I like to think that that's what it was.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because if that was somebody who was an artist, he would have appreciated it more, and he would have understood that, hey, we have a fucking budget and only so much that we can work with at a time.
Yeah, no, of course. But yeah,
that's cool. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, it's another outlet. That, and I feel like just talking about what we were saying is like the video stuff is like big. That's how.
Yeah.
And I think that you should try to get into that, especially since you've been doing your own editing,
Yeah. Okay, cool. That actually does make me feel a little bit inspired. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So now, thanks for being on the show. And so how can people find you out there? Like, let's go through all your various ways of people, here's the time for you to give all your plugs is what I'm trying to say.
Plugs. Okay, well, you can find me on Instagram at corpse__queen. You could find me on YouTube under Corpse Queen. I do kind of like metal makeup tutorials and corpse paint tutorials. I'm also going to be doing a series of little documentaries on there on bands that I love, so that'll be fun. And then, of course, check out my podcast, Shedding Skin, which is available on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube as a video content. I mean, if you want to check out my OnlyFans, my name on there is Woman of Dark Desires of OV. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank
Right
you so
on.
much for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, just talking to you about, well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. And also
Yeah,
just
sure.
talking to you about this stuff with like the similarities between like, the adult porn channels. And you really gave me like an update on my knowledge because I didn't really understand about a lot of that stuff. And it is very much similar to what musicians and bands go through, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm still mind blown that I didn't draw that parallel before. But yeah, thank you for widening my perspective as well.
Right on. Well, once again, thanks. And thanks everyone for listening. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Take care.
Alrighty. Bye bye, guys.